Welcome back. Well, you probably saw stories on the news recently about a huge asteroid that's heading towards Earth. It should hit around about 2019. If it does, we're all doomed. But with a scenario like that, if you need the facts, there's only one man to turn to. Sir Patrick Moore. I met up with him a little bit earlier and started by asking him, the asteroid, does it have a name?
Not yet. It's got a provisional designation, 2002 NT7, and when the orbit's really worked out, we'll give it first of all a number, and then eventually a name. But so far, they've merely got that catalogue number.
Does the name come from whoever discovered it? We've got Halley's Comet and things like that. Will it get the name?
Halley's Comet's exception. He was the man who first worked out the orbit. Normally, an asteroid can be named, well, the name can be suggested by the discoverer. It then goes to the International Committee, the IAU, International Union, the naming committee there, and they consider it. And that committee consists of 14 members, which I happen to be one.
So there's a chance it could end up with a great big long name with yours on the end.
No, certainly not. But I may say, this particular one is interesting. It's what we call a near-Earth asteroid, and it can come close to us. It won't hit us, I may say. I don't know where that came from. It won't hit us. It'll pass within 1 million miles or so. But it's a big one. It's about 1 mile across. And that's big for these things.
You see, this is the story that everybody was getting excited about, the fact that in 2019 it's going to be the end of the world. I think people have been waiting for this for centuries, but it definitely won't hit Earth.
It definitely will not hit Earth. This particular one will miss by quite a wide margin. On the other hand, I'm not going to say the chances are being hit by something are nil, because they're not. This one, chances are being hit by this one, is roughly 1 in half a million, I think. So don't panic.
If I was to put a tenner on that for it to hit Earth, well, I probably wouldn't be around to collect the winnings anyway. But
no, if it did hit, it would be global devastation. Probably did happen about 65 million years ago. We were hit by a thing probably rather like this, and that crashed down and dropped so much dust into the atmosphere, rotted out the sun, changed the entire climate, and that led to the extinction of the dinosaurs. It would do the same thing, but luckily it won't.
You say the asteroid's a mile wide, which sounds enormous. Would most of that burn up as it came through the atmosphere if it did get that close?
It wouldn't. It wouldn't come straight through and bang. If it fell in the sea, cause a huge tidal wave will sweep around the world, and it might even rupture the Earth's crust. It wouldn't do that. Mind you, there are smaller things, we call them near-Earth asteroids, and these do whiz by. One whizzed by the other day at about 70,000 miles, not very far, but they're very much smaller. This is a big one.
See, 70,000 miles, to me, seems like 1 million miles away.
No,
it's misses as good as a mile, as they say.
Close shave. I mean, the last major impact they had was way back in 1908, and something hit Siberia and blew pine trees flat over a very wide area, but that was much smaller than this thing.
I've seen the photographs of that. There was total devastation. It looked like Hiroshima.
Luckily, no one lived there. It was an uninhabited country, but if it had hit a city, the death toll would have been colossal. Now, I'm not saying we can't be hit, because we can, but my message is, don't panic.
2019, we will go on past
Don't
there.
bother. It'll be perfectly right.
A question I have to ask you. I can't have you in the studio and not ask you. Is there life out there?
I'm quite sure there is. Look at it this way. In our galaxy, 100,000 million stars. We know 1,000 million galaxies. Therefore, the total number of stars is colossal, and we are sure now many of these do have planetary systems. There must be plenty of Earths. And I'm quite sure life is very abundant up there, but I have no proof at all. It's light years away. And in our solar system, there's no intelligent life anywhere except possibly on the Earth.
I could get you to I was going to say that's debatable at times, but
I
we'd
quite agree.
Like you to have a look at one of our newsreaders, Brian Smith, because I think he's from another planet. We'll have a chat with him on the way out.
One thing we're very interesting, we'll shortly be able to send unmanned probes to Mars, collect samples and bring them back, and see if there's any trace of life there. Well, no Martians, no little green men, but if there's any trace of life at all, single-cell stuff, that will show life will appear where it can. That would be a very important pointer, I think.
Why do you think there's been such a big delay between landing on the moon and sending a manned mission to Mars? Because you were broadcasting during the first moon landing, weren't you?
Several reasons. First of all, sending a man to Mars is much more of a problem, because if things go wrong, you can't turn around and come back, and there's solar radiation to be considered too. The problems are much greater. And then, of course, things happened. The American shuttle took much longer to evolve than they thought it would, cost more, had that terrible Challenger disaster. The Russians ran out of money, and altogether things have been held up. They'll go back on course, but I know one thing, the first step must be more bases on the moon, and we won't send people back to the moon until there's rescue provision, which there wasn't last time. I remember sitting in the BBC studio, I was on the moon map team, listening as Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin came down. I think we were Just suppose we'd been wrong to make a faulty landing. They couldn't get back. So when I heard Neil's voice coming through, the Eagle has landed, I felt great relief.
I remember watching that on TV, but there were stories going around some years later that it was all a big con. It was a big Hollywood film set, and they didn't go to the moon at all.
That came from a film called Capricorn 1, which does the collaborator. All I say is, there are some people who believe that. If ignorance is bliss, they must be very happy.
You mentioned the shuttle, and of course we've got space tourism now. We've had a couple of guys in space. Would you ever have gone into space?
I need a very massive rocket to launch me. I'd love to have gone, but no hope for me. The wrong age, the wrong nationality, everything wrong. But I'd love to have gone. But I was involved in a way, because I was one of those providing maps of the moon before the astronauts went there.
Is there anything you see on these sci-fi programs that it seems far-fetched, but you can see that this could happen in the future? Or
Well,
beam me
all
up
right.
Scotty's stuff?
All right, I mean, that kind of is far-fetched now. Space warps, time warps, teleportation, thought travel. On the other hand, television would have been far-fetched not so very long ago, and science fiction does turn into science fact. I'm prepared to say it may happen, but I don't know how. We have no clue yet, but it could happen one day.
You mentioned television. We have to talk about the Sky at Night. Are you still doing Sky at Night?
I haven't missed a month the last 45 years.
I was going to say,
And I must say that if I'm still going next Christmas time, I hope I will be, then that'll be our 600th programme.
45 years, so that's actually the longest running TV program in the world, isn't it?
Well, the same presenter, well, a long way. So no one's approached it. So I'll go on as long as I can, or as long as they want me to. I've got to go to Georgeville Bank in the near future to do one from there with Bernard Lovell. We'll be doing one next time we come up. We'll be doing one about the asteroid impacts. That time we do the thing.
Anything we should be looking out for in particular this year?
Well, all depends. If you stay here, not a lot. If you don't mind going to Africa or Australia in December, then you'll see a total eclipse of the sun. I wish I were fit enough to go, but that's a wonderful sight, believe me. But otherwise, not a lot this year, really.
Okay.
Now, you never know. I mean, you might as well black comet any time.
No, don't say that. You'll start all these rumours off again. You have people panicking again, Patrick.
I remember Comet Hale-Bopp. That was a beauty.
That was a beauty. But Patrick, thanks very much for coming in. Thanks for your time. And I'm sure we'll get you back again when the world is due to end again.
Nice to see you, and very best of luck to Portsmouth Television.